And now, from Grid Square Echo Mike 48, this is 100 Watts and a Wire.
Well, hello and welcome. Amateur radio amplified on 100 Watts and a Wire. It's Christian. My call sign is Kilo Zero Sierra Tango Hotel. And whether you're an experienced ham radio operator or just getting started, this podcast is designed to mentor, entertain, and provide a welcoming community of radio enthusiasts from around the world. We're going to cover some news, information, and you're listening to episode number 388. You can maximize your signal. We're going to talk about impedance a little bit tonight. And tune in live every Sunday, 6 o'clock Central Time on YouTube as we do the live recording here as a live stream. And if you subscribe, the episodes will be sent to you directly to your device. Steve is here, W7UDI. How's it going with you, sir? It's so much fun in the pre-show. That's the one we should probably charge admission for.
Oh, we'd probably get in trouble. We'll get a strike or two or three.
I think we would probably lose.
No, doing pretty good. Busy week like everybody. So glad to be here.
Good to have you. And let's see. We got Scotty here. Scotty holding down the East Coast. He is Kilo Charlie 3 Bravo X-Ray November. What's going on with you back east?
Like everyone else on the team, busy week. Lots of 12-hour days this past week. So
it is nuts. Isn't it funny how you settle in and it was just 12 hours? Mine tended to be like 8:30 to 8:30, and that's kind of how those days went. And then Friday was pretty laid back. I was glad to get through Thursday. And I was like, oh, I think I've hit the maximum hours of what you pay me for, so I think I'm going to stop working at this point. Did you have days from hell? You're a foreman, Steve, so I imagine your job to be a lot of having the guys do those things, and then when they F those things up, you got to do it. Is that how it works?
Uh-huh. Or tell them to redo it, and then...
redo that. That's a no.
12-hour day.
And then there's dealing with engineers. And they can kind of they can't engineer their way out of a paper bag at times, and they can screw up engineering a wet dream most of the time. So
you telling me when I wake up early from my dreams, it's an engineer somewhere has screwed that up for me? Dang, I knew it.
Yep.
Just when I'm going in for Ginger and Mary Ann, it's like,
it's my engineers, so I'm only talking about my engineers.
Okay, not all.
I don't know about yours.
Scotty, what sort of work were you doing this week that got you caught up?
Well, typically I don't do many recording sessions at the studio anymore, but there was a couple that came across this week for a children's show that's going to be happening at the Kennedy Center, and it involved a band of DC police officers, and they showed up to the studio just after their shift, all in full uniform, pistol belts and all, and lugging in keyboards and drums and stuff, and that ended up going till the first night they were in, we ended up going till almost midnight. So.
Dang.
It was a long day.
Damn.
Hey, Charlie, give me a little more handcuff. A little louder. Can you get it on
a little more Glock in my headphones, please?
And Scotty's going, give me some more cowbell.
Just more cowbell. No, none of that. Put your gear down. Man, speaking of gear, I lost my favorite little flashlight today. I was out looking at something in my truck because I'm going to upgrade a little cable in there for my mobile rig and the 2-meter side. And I went in there to check out this connection thing. And I think I went and picked up some twigs and stuff like that to build a fire for my girls, and it fell out of my pocket somewhere. And so I was asking today on the socials, what do you guys carry? Your everyday carry flashlight. What do you like that's small? Do you guys pack one that's like an everyday thing for you? What do you like?
I haven't packed one, but my cell phone has a flashlight, so I kind of use that a lot.
Good point. How about you, Scotty?
I use the cell phone a lot, but also like these Nebo rechargeables. Let me see.
I carry with me a lot. Okay, Nebo. Let me get a closer look. Hold on. Hold it back up there. Let's see. Okay, he's showing us got a nice little bulge there at the top. Does it have like a clip for your pants? He ain't showing me that. What's wrong with you guys?
This one does not, but I usually wear like cargo style pants with a little tool, sort of like
Gotcha.
a painter sort of thing. So I usually slide it in one of those slots.
Okay, it all sounds dirty when you talk about it. Just for our listening audience, we were talking about our lights. So for our friends who have gathered here today, you're welcome to put your everyday carry flashlights. It's really small. It's little. It just takes a little AA battery, and man, it kicks ass. And I'm gonna have to go try to kick around some leaves to find it. It's a bit of a bummer. Anywho, you can let us know if you have a question about anything related to life or amateur radio. Put a Q in front of it and drop it in there. We also have in the chat, and we also have some questions from people that came in this week. We'll be doing that in just a little bit, so hang tight with us. Steve, fellas, I thought we would talk a little bit about a word that I think when you first get into amateur radio, and this will rile up some of the old schoolers and the ones that are like, you should know what these things are. You took it was on the test. I get that all day long. I just, like, you sympathize and some of them. It's how it feels. It comes back like, you should know this. But the word is impedance, right? It just sounds like one of those words when you get into amateur radio. Like, oh man, impedance and 50 ohms and impedance. And I figure we'd talk about it for a little bit, not to get too super technical, but, in a way that could maybe improve your signal strength. And I think for me, it's a fancy word for, how much resistance the antenna has for the flow of electricity. So starting there, I figure we talk about what you thought, Steve, about the word impedance. Is there another way to look at this, what it does? We can talk about how to measure it, troubleshoot, that kind of thing. When I mention impedance to you, what comes to mind, Steve?
Oh, we're dealing with RF and having impedances match with any AC type circuit, because that's where impedance comes along. It's not involved in DC. Whether it's audio, RF, impedance is a kind of like resistance to DC. And we want our impedance to match as close to each other from the output of the equipment to the input of the antenna or other equipment, whether it's stages in the audio. Because when you have an impedance mismatch, you're having a loss of signal. So you want the maximum power transfer is we want to have the impedances equal. And whether that is 50 ohms like we typically have for our antenna systems or 600 ohms for a low impedance audio circuit or 1K or even higher, as long as those impedances are matching. If you remember back in the day when we dealt with our stereo systems and we have our speakers. And 8 ohms, we want to make sure that the output of the audio amplifier is 8 ohms or whatever. And if you paralleled up another set of speakers onto the 8 ohms, you've just now created a 4 ohm load to an 8 ohm source, and now everything is out of whack. And so it's impedances are important, but I don't think we're going to get too deep into the weeds because that's an engineering thing. But for us, let's keep it simple and move along.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about how it's measured. There are ways to measure we can talk about, I have a few listed here, and I won't get in your way with this, Steve, but how are some ways? No. I've got an SWR meter. I've got I don't know how to use an RF bridge or maybe what that even means. The VSWR meter, antenna analyzer, network analyzer. So clearly there's some tools here that can help you figure this out. Let's talk about
measure
those
impedance. Mm-hmm. And the RF bridge is one of them. Our little antenna analyzers are a great tool. They also measure impedance. VSWR or SWR, either way, they're both the same, is if you don't have a 1-to-1, then you're going to have an impedance difference. And so that's a way to know that there's an impedance difference. Now, when you measure with SWR, you don't know which way it is, whether it's the impedance on the load is higher or lower than the source. So, but there's a mismatch because you have SWR.
All right, cool. There's a few questions. I see them coming in, and I appreciate that. Ricardo's got a question, and I know Sheena is new. We'll be talking about that in just a little bit. Let's say you've got a mismatch in impedance. What are some of the ways that you can correct it, Steve, or adjusting the load?
Well, what are we talking about? Antenna? Let's talk about the most common for us is going to be antenna impedance. And one way is to make changes on our antenna, make adjustments. Well, where is the impedance? And for us to find the impedance that's going to match would be where the frequency is, where we have the best VSWR, whether it's on the upper end of the band or the lower end of the band, or it's wherever your best match is, because that's where you're going to have your maximum power transfer. Then we're going to make the adjustments to whether we lengthen or shorten the antenna. This is strictly antenna. We're not talking about audio or anything else. But for antennas, we're gonna make that adjustment. As far as if you're using a antenna that's like a multi-band and you're using some kind of, say you made a doublet antenna where you're using a length of ladder line to be a impedance adjuster, it's basically it's going to fit into what your balun is, a 4-to-1 or 6-to-1, 9-to-1, 49-to-1, whatever balun, because those are ununs, they're just transformers. You're going to either lengthen or shorten that to have that impedance at your source match, so you have the maximum power transfer at the same time match the same impedance at the antenna, the physical antenna itself. So there's a lot of factors in play here, but those are one of the games that we'll play with. If you have an off-center fed dipole, where your feed point's usually around 200 ohms impedance, that's the impedance, and our radios are 50 ohms, so we need a 4-to-1 impedance transformation. Now, whether you do that with a balun or unun, or you do it with a length of, say, 75 ohm coax or twin lead, that is, there's ways to make that impedance transformation so that you have the maximum transfer of power from point A to point B to C and D and radiate out of the antenna. And I'm trying not to get too deep.
No, that's cool. I think it's one of those
keep
topics.
It Disney.
It's one of those topics. Scotty, you mentioned earlier in the week there's an audio side to impedance too. Do you want to talk about that, or is that going to get too tricky? Go ahead.
No, just briefly. And Steve mentioned it briefly, but yeah, anytime you have an alternating current, its resistance to flowing is we call that impedance, because it's it is not just just a sheer resistance like direct current can have, where the residual expels as heat. In an AC circuit with impedance mismatches, you have reactance, which entails some capacitance and some inductance happening. And so the energy is not necessarily dissipated as heat. It can be, depending on it's also frequency and amplitude based. So it can be stored as a capacitive energy and then actually re-released back into the circuit. So it gets very complex getting into impedances. But as far as thinking of it as just a kind of resistance of our flow of energy from point A to point B, which is, the ultimate goal is to match those, to get the maximum power transfer. Then impedance matching, thinking of it as sort of a resistive thing is I think it's just fine. That works for audio too.
From Sheena Marie Hawkins, the only female in the 100 watts in a wire community. Maybe she must be so popular. I don't know. That might not be true. There is Rosa. Rosa is also. We have a couple others. Question: what meter helps with impedance? I guess we talked a little bit about the SWR meter. What's a common one, Steve? That because I know she's new. What would be new
it
if she
comes
was
down to which impedance are you trying to measure? Like I said, we have a bridge. An RF bridge is one. We just have a Wheatstone bridge is another one. But we have analyzers like this. We have vector network analyzers, VNAs. We have network analyzers. There's a lot of tools out there. But if we're looking at just strictly for our antenna system, and that's where and for us as radio amateurs, that's going to be the biggest impact or the biggest factor we're going to be dealing with when it comes to impedance. Your VSWR bridge or SWR bridge, whatever you want to call it, is a good start. It will tell you whether your impedance is there'll be a mismatch. A tool like this, antenna analyzer, whether it's the Rig Expert or if it's a MFJ or a VNA, one of those inexpensive Chinese VNAs, they will kind of give you a little more information. They'll give you a readout and say, oh, you got an impedance of 23 ohms. And it's like, oh, well, my radio is 50 ohms. No wonder I'm seeing a 2-to-1 VSWR. So that's, for antennas, this is the simplest and the easiest way to get there to find impedance.
There you go. If you have a question about anything related to amateur radio, put a Q in front of it, drop it in the chat tonight. We'll be answering some more questions in just a little bit. But now, and thank you for those explanations, Steve. Sidecar Steve, everybody. Everybody is mentor.
Woo!
Oh, I did find that to be
Dynamite!
Let's go to January 24th, 1984. Apple introduces the Macintosh 128K. You guys remember that. Mm-hmm. You guys remember that. We were all around for that, I'm pretty sure. If you're younger than that, I want to know who you are. On the 25th, now, 1915, I was only like 6 months old, but the first intercontinental telephone call happened. January 25th, 1915. It was my grandmama calling Grandpa to say, come pick this little boy up. He just made a mess. A blowout, I think it was. A blowout in my pants. 1915 style. That was cloth diapers back then, so you know how that went. Going also on the 25th, but many years later, 1964, USA launches the second communications satellite. It was the Echo 2. The Echo 2. And on the 31st, in 1958, the United States launches its first satellite. Any guesses on the first satellite launched in 1958? January 31st? Put your answers in the chat. We'll wait. Hopefully the song will be long enough. Just kidding for the people listening. They're like, what? What do you mean? Why? Wait for what? It was called Explorer. The Explorer, the first satellite. Explorer. All right, there you go. And that is this week's first. Yes. Good point there. Oh, girl. It's that time, girl. I've been waiting 18 minutes to talk to you. But first, we got to let Scotty do this thing. I don't know. You know how it is. There's a structure to it. Events for January. Scotty, what's going on around the way?
A couple things coming up next weekend here. We have one of my personal favorites, the Winter Field Day. Happening on January 28th and 29th. It's out in the cold. We also have the CQ 160-meter CW contest is happening next weekend as well.
Oh,
160. I know you love the 160. This one's the CW. Quartz Fest in Quartzsite, Arizona is still going on. We'll be running through the 28th. I think there's a Quartz Fest distance challenge as part of the festivities happening next weekend there. Of course, we have the Bouvet Island the expedition, which is everyone's anxiously anticipating their arrival. Mm-hmm. I know Uncle Paul's been giving us some updates on the Discord.
Yeah, I asked him if he would like to do it. We didn't set up him making an appearance on the thing, but let me turn off the sexy time, because when I think of Bouvet Island, I only think of it as a treacherous place to be going. Let's talk about some of the stuff he gathered for Bouvet Island, and they're out there again, doing it again. This is a dependency. It's an island, a dependency of Norway. I think we have a couple of listeners. We may have 2 people that listen in Norway. It's definitely Finland. We have somebody, and I believe we have someone in Norway where it's cold. What is it, Steve? It's cold 9 months out of the year, and then, crap, I can't remember what he said. 12 months, it's damn cold, or I can't remember.
Yeah,
it's cold all year.
12 months cold, and then 9 months damn cold.
Yeah, that's it. So it's the number 2 on the most wanted DX entity, only second to North Korea. And many believe in our lifetime this may not happen, this North Korea. We've been teased a little bit with, there's a team from Poland that's going to sneak in and light up North Korea. But I don't know. Hopefully, maybe one day, can you imagine the pileups? This is the number 2 most wanted DX entity, and they're trying to do it again. It's an uninhabited and protected nature reserve, and it's the world's most remote island. We're talking about Bouvet Island. Let's see, Antarctica is over 994 miles to the south. It's the closest landmass, is 994 miles away. Plus, it's over 1,500 miles southwest of the Cape of Good Hope of South Africa. There have been 2 expeditions, the 3Y0J and 3Y0Z, and 3Y01. Both teams had to turn back. The other 2 had to turn back, either from bad weather or motor problems. That was the one I most remember, is the one with the engine issues.
That was the one a couple years ago. Yep.
And now we've got 3Y0J as of right now. The team's on their way. They're in a boat called the Maramba. It's a 101-foot ocean sailing vessel. Length is 31 meters. The beam is 6.5 meters for our nautical friends out here. It'll mean a lot to you. It has 2 masts, and it's one of these unique vessels onto itself, very capable of such a journey. There's 13 team members, 2 honorary team members that are now silent keys. 6 pilots are on board. And the band plans are pretty straightforward at this point, according to their website. They have full details there. They're going to do some FT8 with 100 watts, CW single sideband with 1,500 watts. And the word of the day is to remain patient. They're going to try to upload daily logs, the club log, and M0 Oscar Kilo Oscar log search once a day. And they're going to, if the connections are good, they'll be able to do that. But you got to be patient, because they're on the most remote island in the world. So there you go. They left 3 days late. Go ahead.
Yeah, and the first week, once they're on the air, guys, just hang out. It's going to be pure pandemonium. It's going to be, you're going to see, I hate to say it, kind of the ugly of the hobby here, because people are they're going to lose their mind, and it's and they're just it's going to be crazy. You're going to have just the big guns are all going to be out, and they're going to want to get it in. They want to be the first, and they want, yep. And it's and so you might as well just kind of that first week. I think they plan on operating for about 3 weeks. But it's quite a extensive operation. So the first signals that will be on will be, they're still getting, they'll get a station going. It won't be optimal. And then mayhem will ensue. And then, and things will get, more equipment will get, installed, and antennas up. And then the operators will start to get into their rhythm. So by the second week, things will kind of start to settle down, and then by the third week, they'll be rocking and rolling and doing great, and then it'll probably end up towards the end. This is my prediction, that they're going to be begging for contacts. So But I would say the first week I'm out. I'll listen and stuff like that, but I'm not going to even try. It was like the Congo operation. I waited for a week or so or two or whatever to finally, dip my toes in there because it was just pure pandemonium. People kind of, yeah, they're so focused on getting that contact that they just lose all sense of mind and courtesies and customs, and it's just a bovine feces show.
Ooh, feces show. There you go. That's the title of this one, everybody. The Bovine Feces Show. Welcome to it. What I'm thinking, what I don't appreciate, sometimes, this goes back to the very basics. When we talk about a big de-expedition like this, you got to listen for a little bit. Listen anyway. Mm-hmm. Steve is telling you, listen for a long time because you might not be getting close. We could talk about techniques and things to, try to squeeze, everything into your signal and get in there and how do you do all that. But, you got to listen, first of all, to know if they're operating split. That could be a very big possibility.
Will be. They will be. The key is to find what split they are operating. And then because it'll be operating non-split or simplex is it just doesn't work. It just turns into a cluster, and you can fill in the rest.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you fill in the rest there. They left 3 days late, so they were waiting for their equipment to arrive, and they'll be sailing for 11 to 14 days, and they should arrive, if Uncle Paul's predictions are true, January 28th through the 31st, and they'll need approximately 3 days to get set up and get on the air. So that's kind of the word from Uncle Paul, who's been following it pretty extensively. So we were like, hey, you want to give us some details? What are you doing? Because he's watching it. They've got a website where you can kind of track their progress, which was kind of fun. But
I just posted that in the chat.
All right. If you have questions about that or anything else related to amateur radio, go ahead and drop it in there. It was something I was going to bring up regarding that, de-expeditions and stuff of that nature, or even the big contests. And I remember an early mentor of mine, he'd say, sometimes you just got to go read a book. Take a nap, go read a book, because you can just wear yourself out. Just wear yourself out calling and calling. Do you suggest putting a recording on yours? Like I always do mine like in real time, instead of like trying to get in there, how to do an audio recording.
You could. I mean, I don't.
Seems like another
just call
thing,
real time because I'm trying to figure out their pattern and then trying to. Well, do you when they go QRZ or they say thank you? Do you start transmitting right then and there, or do you kind of wait a half a second to a second or so, then transmit and trying? You try different techniques and. Yeah, you could probably do it with recording, but then, you got to hit the button and everything. So I don't know. To each his own. That's what's cool about the hobby. To each its own.
Yep. If we could all just live by that, that would be great. I put a poll up, so to speak, for the YouTube on the YouTube channel asking about should the head of the FCC be required to have an amateur radio license? This was a video I did on TikTok earlier this week because I heard some fellas. This was one of those heard on the air 80-meter editions, and the guys were, they were debating. I'll call it that. I don't know if it was an actual.
They were
debate.
Opinionated.
They were definitely opinionated and talking about. That anybody who's a head of the FCC should be required to have an amateur radio license. Now, I didn't give my opinion on any of this. I just wanted to know what the folks on TikTok and then on YouTube would think. So I put it out there for you today. If you're joining us here live, go ahead and take the poll. We'll talk about it in a few minutes. And then I mentioned it to Steve, when we connected up tonight. And what did you think, Steve?
I would think it'd be great if they were, because then they would understand our plight understand the hobby, but then also understand RF and what the function of, the electromagnetic spectrum is. But unfortunately, they are political appointees, so they don't know jack when it comes to the technical part of it. There's the engineering side of the FCC, but it would be nice to have people with technical know-how. Would it happen? That's a pipe dream. As long as it stays a political appointment, I don't think it'll happen. If the head of the FCC had a ham license, that would be awesome.
Yeah,
I think
that
it
would
would
be
be great, but in reality, I really don't see it happening. I just thought, Uncle Joe, are you going to appoint a ham radio operator to be the head of FCC? What?
Yeah, right. I can't imagine that would be high on the list. And
No.
we're not very high on the list either, and I think the political nature of that whole thing is what's true. You know what I mean? It's a political appointed position. It's a lady right now. Her name, slips me at this point. But yeah, it would be cool. It would be somebody who had some sort of empathy for our situation. But I think they need to be really savvy in what is making them dough, which is probably a different kind of wireless communications. If you get my drift, is probably something else is what's making them a lot of money. Isn't that right, boys?
Yes. That's right, yes.
That's right.
Yes.
There you go. From hot off the presses on 80 meters. Our poll right now, yes, 58% of the people who are joining us tonight believe, yes, they should have an FCC requirement, that the head of the FCC has an amateur radio license. Also on TikTok, I guess if I could go over there real quick, that was another one where people were like, yeah, absolutely, they should. They should. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. So overwhelmingly, I didn't take a poll there, but that, some folks did chime in with the idea, yep, they probably should be doing that.
It'd be great, but
Not likely.
sorry to rain on your parade there, but I don't think it's going to happen. I
mean, he
would
says-
love to see it. I would love to see an administration that would pick a head of FCC and then say, "Oh, by the way, I think as the head of this XYZ administration, you should have your amateur radio license so that you would have a better understanding of the RF spectrum." And just get your license. Just going through that process, taking the test, also would expose that person as how the FCC, the inner workings of the FCC, and how to get your license, what it takes, and maybe it might make ensue some changes or. But I don't know. It's a pipe dream, but it would be great.
Got a good point. Maybe we should talk about here. We were just talking about Bouvet Island and the operation of working split. Is there an easy definition of working split that you can come up with, Steve, to kind of, for our new and newer ham radio operators, what that means and what it means to your radio?
So working split means that you listen on one frequency, which is going to be the DX entities transmit. So they're going to transmit on one frequency, and then you're going to transmit on another frequency. And sometimes they'll say 5 up, or 5 to 10 up, or 5 to 15 up, and that means that the DX entity is listening 5 to 15 kilohertz above where they're transmitting. So if we'll just pick a frequency, 14250. This was the Congo operation here the other day. So they were transmitting on 14250. So you're listening on 14250, and then you set your second VFO and you put your radio into split mode. And by then you're transmitting, because I'm listening. The DX is listening between 5 to 15 up, or well, in the case 5 to 10. So he's going to listen from 255 to 260, and he's going to listen right into that band. And what he does is that he or she, I apologize for excluding our females operators out there, they will move their receiver. And they'll just tune in someone that's calling them. They go, oh, look at that. There's Scotty. Let me tune Scotty. Okay, Scotty. And then they'll reply back to Scotty, and then they'll just keep on going. But operators have a pattern. So some just kind of stay in one spot, and then others will just kind of move up the band and then go back down to the bottom and then move back up, or others will start from the top where their listening window and then they'll move down. I mean, there's all kinds of patterns and that's what you try to develop by listening. You try to figure out what they're doing, and having pan adapters is an awesome tool because now you can see where people are responding back to. So it's but it just makes it easier for the person on the other end. So, and then in theory, everybody is just listening to their transmit. It's a clear frequency. But unfortunately, and I've made the mistake before. I've done it. Guilty as charged that I forgot to put my radio in transmit or into split, and I had it set up. I just didn't push the button, and I'm calling them on their transmit frequency, and I got chastised. It's like, he's working split. And it's like, oh, had that, that moment. And it was like, yeah, felt like an idiot. And I was, but we move on.
Well, you got the nice version of it. Unfortunately, I don't care for the band police. I mean, I've done it too. I've been that person. And I do appreciate when they say, because it's like either you didn't know or you forgot to push the button. The working split, 5 up. That's what you hear, 5 up, 5 up. And then the band police get so annoyed at doing this because a lot of people just aren't listening at all. Sometimes they make mistakes. Sometimes they're not paying attention. He's working up, dumbass. I was like, oh, here we go.
There we go.
11 days of this.
They're transmitting. They're now, interfering with the DX entity, and it just gets everybody all upset. And it's just, if you want to be a band cop, just be cool about it, and just, if someone is working them simplex, just say 5 up, or they're listening up. Don't go in there and throw insults. You dumbass, you don't know what you're doing, and da 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 da. It doesn't help. It doesn't help anybody. But a little encouragement, just say, hey, they're listening up. I think that's okay. But editorializing, what you think of the other operator is not.
It's Dumas.
The Dumas. That's
Dumas.
Douchebaggery, what it is.
Douchebaggery. If you find value in 100 Watts and Wire, you can support the content and the community you enjoy by visiting buymeacoffee.com/100watts. It's an easy way. It's as easy as buying us a cup of coffee, and actually cheaper if you became a member of the monthly plan. Our dipole level is just $1 an episode. That's $4 a month. Coffee at your local corner store is $15 a bucket, or whatever it costs. Yeah, I don't know. It's up near where
I
you
heard $7 the other day for Starbucks, but
$7. There you go. That's a lot of dough for a cup of coffee, man. I'll make my own. Sorry. It's actually cheaper than a real cup of coffee. Visit buymeacoffee.com/100watts today. And thank you. And thanks to our new supporters, N3LOU and Dick, KA4HUM. I bet you Dick is here. And in our chat. Hello, Dick. If it's Dick Johnson is here, and that's my favorite name. I'm like, Mom, why didn't you give me a name like this? I used to work with a guy named Ron Woodcock. It's like, damn, you're the luckiest guy I know. Anywho, as we carry on.
I could just see it in school. Woodcock. You're doing a Ferris Bueller day.
Woodcock. What a name. Anyway, Scotty, what's going on Hamfest? Nobody's getting Hamfest until like March or April, right? No January Hamfest.
Oh yeah, that's happening. Especially down south, like in Jackson, Mississippi. January 27th, Jackson, Mississippi Capital City Hamfest. And it's also an ARRL Mississippi State Convention. That's happening on the 27th. There's a Winterfest happening in Collinsville, Illinois, and it's an ARRL Midwest Division Convention as well. And on the lovely, one of Steve's favorite places, the lovely Hawaii.
Oh,
it's the Big Island of Hawaii International Swap Meet and Hamfest.
Yeah, baby.
2023. A few more Hamfests going on. I've listed them on the events channel on our Discord server. So you can swing over there and see what else is happening next weekend, perhaps in your neck of the woods.
in my neck of the woods is Winterfest. That is happening next weekend. Also, it's on Winter Field Day, so it's a busy one. I'm going to try to break away and get up there to Winterfest. It's not too far from here, about 30 minutes. If I can, I will.
Nice.
And I like to look under the tables. That's what Sidecar says, look under the tables. That's where you get all that coax on.
Now,
Make
that
them
coax, if
bazookas
you want to
on.
build a double bazooka,
Pew, pew, pew. Yeah.
Look
I'm
under
gonna
the
try to
table.
Get under the table. You might see somebody's guacamoles down there, but hey, keep looking down for the coax and not the Johnsons. Oh, perfect segue into, if you're looking for a power solution, check out Bioenno Power, offering the best lithium phosphate batteries for your ham radios. Visit bioennopower.com. That's BIOENNO power.com. There you go. All right. Thank you so much for your patience. Yeah, I do have a fear of looking under the table and somehow seeing somebody's Gordos hanging out. But it's winter time. It's winter. Maybe you won't see that, but some people, they come from Michigan. They're like, it's not bad out here. Let me air them out. Do-do-do.
Oh, man.
If you have a question, put a Q in front of it, and we will try to get an answer for you as fast as we can. We'll try to make a priority for the people that are here tonight. And I could say, don't look under any of these tables that people are talking to you. You would see why I think these things. There's there's a rule here. Don't stand up. The camera's on. Don't stand up. Don't stand up, boy. Don't do it. All right, let's see what kind of questions we have. How can I properly handle and store radio tubes? That's an interesting question that came our way earlier this week. We're talking about boat anchors and your tubes in the radios. What do you think, Steve?
Just handle them with care. I just don't go too crazy. I mean, they're pretty durable. You can grab them. You don't have to treat them like halogen light bulbs or anything like that, where you get oil off your fingers on them. They won't fail. That's
just a quick.
But you don't
we're
want to
still talking about tubes, not under the table. Right?
tubes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're talking about tubes.
I didn't know if you changed the subject or not.
And as far as properly store them, if you can find a box that the tubes came in, or that's one thing, but that's probably not. You can just probably put them in a little bit bubble wrap, but
I had to go to the glass right after the conga loans.
You set me up on this one.
Now I can't return. I can't go back. He's like, handle them with care. Wrap
You're
them in
still
bubble
thinking
wrap.
Harry Gordos and stuff like that.
Keep your hands clean of oil and move them around. Like, oh, geez. Ay.
That's bad.
I need a commercial break now. But thank you for that question. Wrap them in bubble wrap and handle them with care. There you go.
Handle them with care.
Another question, how can I break through a pileup with just 100 watts? This is good to know through, this conversation we had here with Bouvet Island coming up. And as Steve is saying, look, that first few days, first 4 or 5 days might be just too nutty, to get involved. We welcome you to try it. I mean, by all means, go ahead and try it. But we can talk a little bit about some tips by, working 100 watts. Go ahead, Steve.
It comes down to technique is a big thing, and that's that timing. Whether you wait a little bit, and is sometimes referred to as tail ending. You can get in there. If the person is listening to one particular frequency, say they're just listening 5 up, maybe going off frequency a little bit to maybe change the tone of your voice is another one. A lot depends on the operator that whether they're going for the biggest signal that they're hearing, or trying to listen into the crowd. When I'm doing the net nights and stuff, I'm trying to listen for the weaker signals a fair amount of times, and I'll kind of pick a person and a tone of voice that I hear, and I'll kind of try to focus in on that. So, but that's my technique, as I'm operating from as a net controller part of it, but it's I think that it's not impossible to work Bouvet Island with 100 watts. You can do it. It's just going to come down to technique and just trying to find that and then anticipating where that person is going to be listening at. If they're listening, working their way up or working their way down, and you can do it that way. Another way is if they've kind of gone from a break or something, just stay on the frequency, wait and wait, and then they come back. There's a good chance that you might get them on the first one or two calls that they're making before the rest of the pack wakes up and realizes they're back on the air. So you're just going to have to find it, but it's doable. But technique is going to be your biggest ally to work a rare DX station.
Right on. Thank you for that question. Appreciate that. James, Kilo India 5, Oscar Echo Bravo. I turned into a baguette. I turned fancy. Kilo India 5, Oscar Echo Bravo. He wants to know, what does 5 up or down mean?
5 up or down or is where the station is listening. So wherever their transmit frequency is or where they're transmitting on, they're going to be either listening up the band or they're going to be listening down the band. The typical convention is they listening up. So, but they can switch it up and listen down. That's why it's important to listen to the operator. There'll be stuff posted on the DX cluster and they say, oh yeah, they're doing that. They might say they're QRV or whatever 5, but they might not be. They might change it. That's why you gotta listen to the operator and listen to their instructions and to be successful. So most of the time they're listening up the band, but they could be listening down the band depending on where they're operating at the time.
All right. Thank you, James. Kilo India 5 only eats baguettes.
Baguette.
A great point here from November 4, Papa Lima Sierra. He says, listen, have patience, be persistent, and research propagation. Good tips.
Spot on.
All right. Let's move on to another question. It is, what are the benefits of buying a software-defined radio?
Oh,
Interesting.
Do you want to take a shot at that, Scotty?
Well, for me, just the benefits right out of the gate would be the DSP that you can get with an SDR. Tons of signal processing for your RX, noise reduction, digital filters galore, and the ability to easily integrate that into some software to see the waterfall, which I love. That's right out of the gate. That's what I can, off the top of my head, the benefits of an SDR radio.
Along with that, the other benefit is the upgradability to the firmware upgrades. So like your PCs and your Macs and mini Macs, and there is upgrades in the OS, and that's the same thing that occurs with the SDR radio, is that they'll upgrade the algorithm or the firmware of the, and then you can have even greater DSP action out of it or features, and it will. So it's just that you don't have to change the hardware. It's like getting a new radio without buying a new radio. You just upload the firmware. So there's a number of benefits from the software-defined radio.
Yeah, speaking of SDR, I just read there's a blog yesterday from the SDR Play guys. They're very close to releasing their multi-platform version of the SDR Uno. It's going to be available for Mac very soon. I cannot wait to run an SDR Uno equivalent SDR software on my Macintosh computer.
Now let's talk about it from a different angle. Now, we all know a computer life, depending on how hard you push them. Scotty and I may be pushing them harder with audio or video applications and making them do more. But, your traditional computer, you may get 5 or 7 years out of a computer before it starts to kind of become chitty bang bang, and you got to re-up. Is that how it's going to be for software-defined radios?
Pretty much. It just depends on what the manufacturer of the software defined radio, what chipset they used at the time they designed it, and if it's going to have a short lifespan or is it going to have kind of a longer lifespan, if they have enough memory in there or so that they can add more features. And I mean, there's a lot goes into it, but in a nutshell, what it boils down to is that if there's going to be an improvement in, say, the waterfall or the pan adapter display, you don't have to go buy a new radio. You just basically reload the firmware and
update your computers
but
or your radio's software.
But eventually they will say, hey, we can't do any more with this particular chipset, and they're going to move on. It's like a MacBook Pro. I mean, if you got a 2011 MacBook Pro, it has a certain chipset in there, and it's like, well, this is as far as we're going with the OS. If you want the latest and greatest, you're going to need 13 and beyond, or you're going to need an M1 chipset based. I mean, it's just. But as far as for SDR radios, it all depends on what chipset they started with, and then how far they can go with it. But I think they'll get a good 10 years, maybe 15 years out of it without replacing it.
Okay. Well, that's good, because I was thinking, technically, I mean, I'm always wrong, so I'm not immune to it or whatever. But I look at these radios, these modern radios, as kind of computers, and then I thought, oh man, I did pay a good bit of money for the 7610. I would hate for that to go crapping out after 7 years, because I might not be an investor again at that level in a 7-year radio, but 15, okay, you know what I mean? But Scotty's Yaesu FT101E or whatever that radio is, that's going to be there. You know what I mean? I'm kind of hedging myself, thinking, maybe I need to get me a pretty nice, polished, old, solid state rig that's going to be.
Or you could be Collins man.
Oh.
They always stick around, the old Collins.
Hey,
probably have better luck finding tubes for the Collins than my 101.
Hey, Collins, what's up? Yeah, okay.
And that was a reference from one of Mark's posts on in the Discord group, Collins man.
Yeah, so I have thought about that computer aspect to
I got my action pants on.
Our modern rigs with the
cuffed
press
action pads.
That's a little
and
inside.
I have pictures of my wife and girlfriend, both, but I don't have QSL cards because I know who I worked. Because I'm Collins man.
This is fodder from our Discord server. So if you'd like to join in the nuttiness that happens over there from time to time, Mark is good, stays up late. He finds these cartoons that are kind of funny and things and like that. When he can't sleep, we all benefit from it later. But you're all welcome to join us. And for those who are here during the live stream, you just stay tuned. We'll be giving you live coverage of the 100 Watts in a Wire Sunday Evening Net tonight for a bit, anyway, for a while. So you're welcome to join us there as well as we move into that. The Zoom room will be opened up as well. The link is in the description. Of course, listening to this anywhere, Sundays at 6 o'clock, join us. You can come here in person, hang out with us. We would love to meet you. Okie dokie. Here's another one, Steve. How do I know my antenna needs to be tuned?
SWR is the tool that you're going to look at, or the values you're going to look at, whether the antenna is tuned or not. Most common commercial radios that we got out now, and the People's Radio like the 7300, they have built-in tuners. So if you get close, the tuner will take care of that, and you'll be just fine. But if you turn that tuner off or don't invoke the tuner, then you'll know by high VSWR that something's amiss. So VSWR or SWR is going to be your indicator whether your antenna needs tuning or not.
Very good. Thank you for that question. That was a good one. For our friends who are here, get your question in real quick. We're pressing up toward the top of the hour. If not, this will be it. Here's a question. Is a ham fest kind of like a I guess that's supposed to be flea market.
Flea
Is a
market.
ham
Yes.
fest kind of like a flea market?
Exactly what
It is. It is exactly. Yep. You go in there, you see the stuff that people are, wanting to sell, or their spousal unit has told them they need to get rid of some of their stuff and their valuable goods in their shack or garage, and they will peddle their wares at the Ham Fest or Flea Fest. Some of them call them, Flea Fests, and it's just a big swap meet, and you go over there, negotiate, and cash is king, and then hopefully you come off with a deal, and both parties are happy.
How, a follow-up question, thank you for that question, that's a good one. How is it acceptable to haggle a little bit?
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah?
Uh-huh.
Okay. 'Cause I've found that these guys don't want to take these big radios back home. They don't want to carry this crap back. So I think,
No.
not that they're going to give it away or as a steal, but I think they're pretty much pricing them to sell. So I just didn't know if haggling at that price point was appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, I've haggled with it, and it's like, I'll still have something out there, and I go, hey, I'll give you. They say like they want $30 for it. Well, you take 20, and no, I want 30, and that's usually at the beginning, and then you kind of come around towards the end of the Ham Fest, and then the item is still there. Take 20 for that. You wait them out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll take 20 because they don't want to take it home.
Right.
So,
I want to pack it all
or they'll
up.
come back and say 25, and you go, okay, 25, and then go from there. Meet in the middle.
Very good. Very good. I think we've done it again. Thank you all for your questions there. We appreciate that. If you have a question anytime tonight, put a Q in front of it, drop it in the chat. We'll pull them all back and try to answer them as we get them. I'm noticing now, and I'm very happy about it, that I feel like we're becoming a repository for new and newer hams. And then we've got the folks that have patience. The mentoring that takes patience and answering questions seem to be here at 100 Watts and a Wire. I'm really proud of that fact. And saying that, I want to know what you're struggling with. If you're trying to, doesn't matter if you're new or you've been in it for a while, what are you struggling with? What are you trying to put together? What can we go and research for you and try to get answers for you and help you out? Because this is a community, and we're all in it together, I guess, is what I'm really trying to say, right?
Or, you don't have to be new. You could be someone that has just come back into the hobby after a break. I mean, you got your ticket while you were in college, then your career came along and family came along. You had to take a break from the hobby. You kept your ticket alive, and you came back into the hobby later in years. But when you kind of left the hobby was kind of one way, and now it's a total different animal, and trying to get back into it. You're more than welcome to stop in and ask questions, and we'll be more than happy to help you get back, get your feet wet back into the amateur radio world, because a lot changed.
It's two-way communication. You can steer the show where we need it to go. So we'll bring a topic, and we'll iron it out a little bit, and then we'll see what you guys want to talk about. I'm going to take this opportunity to thank you for watching and listening. Subscribe wherever you get podcasts and take it with you. It comes right to your device. And thank you, Scotty. It's Kilo Charlie 3, Bravo, X-Ray November, Sidecar Steve, W7UDI. Thank you both for being here and the work you do each week. And I'll say 7-3 to you boys.
7-3, Christian.
All right.
Pleasure as always.
Take care of yourself. We'll see some of you coming over to the Sunday Evening Net. The rest of you, take care of yourselves. Look out for each other. And by all means, if you can, please try and stay above the noise. 7-3, gang. We'll see you soon.
7-3, y'all.
To join the 100 Watts and a Wire community, visit 100wattsandawire.com.